Shout out to everybody. Namaste as always. I gotta be short because I gotta get some sleep. They've had me up pretty much all day, and definitely pretty tapped out. But I wanted to talk about this for a second. Even though Black History Month is over, I still wanted to just say this because it's from the heart. Uh, and I want to shout out all the people who inspired me to do this. Specifically, uh, the younger Marsalis. Um, I just heard him on IG talk about something related to this. Jason Marsalis. I definitely remember my years in New Orleans studying medicine, going to Snug Harbor with some of the most amazing times in my New Orleans experience, watching his father most of the time, the late great Ellis Marsalis, may he rest in peace, play. It's more like a spiritual experience, really, watching him play. Especially when you were a person who was inspired to a point where you really wanted to learn the music and dive deeper into it to the best of your ability. And really, what that required, I learned, was for me to learn to listen, which is what Jason was talking about. He said that two musicians, both of whom I've actually met before in real life, uh, Robert Glasper and Greg Hutchinson, the pianist and the drummer. I met Greg when I was going to Stanford jazz workshops. I met Robert just like by luck, just by sheer luck. I was in Seattle. Actually, after I was actually getting married at the time, and I was just hanging out, and I was lucky enough to go to the right place, and he was playing, and I got to meet him for a brief moment. Awesome, awesome. But he said they were commenting on people transcribing and listening to the legends in the music, the legends in jazz music. I got into music in high school, and I wasn't fortunate enough to be able to study it the way I really, really wanted to, because I was pursuing medicine. I did go to high school with a great drummer named Brian Blade, who I'm pretty sure Jason probably knows, because he's one of the great jazz drummers. Uh, but when, coming to the music as an older student, after I had studied in high school, didn't get to study for many, many years, all the way through medical school, definitely was a handicap. Okay, but it also was in some ways a mixed blessing. The reason I say that is because I realized some things about what it really took to really hear what you hear, and that intrigued me as a young scientist slash physician who was studying all these things about the human brain and how it worked and how sounds were created and how all these electrical signals are processed by the ear, sent to certain parts of the temporal lobes to certain cranial nerves and et cetera, et cetera. Even getting down into the subatomic patterns, electrical, how electrical signals are created. I mean, you can get into the physics of even that. And the funny thing is, you can study all of that stuff your whole life, and then somebody play something and say, "What'd you just hear?" And you'll look at them like, "Huh? What?" So Just because you know about hearing, know stuff about it, study a lot of stuff about hearing, it's not the same as hearing. I think what he was talking about in the video too was that it seems like young cats don't really understand the path that the great people that laid the way walked for a reason. I understood later in life what my teachers in medical school were trying to teach me. When somebody's in front of me and they're speaking and talking, and there's a cultural barrier, to the racial barrier, class barriers, sex barriers. I mean, so many barriers, right? Then there's just the human condition that we deal with: tired, sleepy, pissed off, too happy, too sad, weather ain't right, shoes fit too tight, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And the brain's working at a certain level and not really immersed, not fully processing what's going on internally or externally. Okay. And this ain't even talking about the technical skill required, you know, that's learned, or if you're gifted, still has to be learned. Okay. All this stuff about prodigies is cool, but a lot of them prodigies put a whole lot of hours in, you know, and those gifts were refined. So I don't buy it 100% to I'm just a prodigy. Some work has to be done to refine certain skills, you know. But when you sit and learn, you know, so later in life, after I was already a doctor, I went back and studied classical piano at Montana State University, 2 years. Got to the point where I could play some Bach, you know, classical stuff that was technical, but it was an attempt for me to polish and increase my level of chops, as we say in jazz. And it wasn't, it was emphasized, and but definitely the classical music was definitely, the teachers were focused on could I sight read. We did talk about ear training. It was a part of my theory class. You know, could we hear intervals, fifths, fourths, thirds, minor thirds, et cetera, octaves. Not so much, you know, pure tonal like perception, like playing anything in any octave. What's this? Because trust me, that's a whole nother level. And I don't know if that's a gift or if it's I know relative pitch is definitely, can definitely be taught pretty quickly actually. But putting all that together, now, you know, you learn all this stuff, and I play a record for you. I play you know, Miles Davis record, play some Freddie Freeloader, one of my favorite solos. Definitely, you know, and I actually did try to transcribe Lester Young. So it was funny when Jason talked about that. Somebody didn't appreciate Lester Young. I'm like, Lester Young, that's where you need to be starting that, man. There's a history there. There's a transition between something old and something new. And if you can hear what Lester's playing, man, you you got the potential to be something great. Okay, that's how it works. If you fully can fully hear that, appreciate it. Uh, at first, yeah, mimicry. That's the art of how we learn. You know, teacher shows you a karate kick. Now you do it. Shows you a block. Now you do it. Okay. Now let's spar. Let's put it all together. Right. But at first, you mimic. You repeat. How do babies learn to talk? Boo boo, goo goo, ba ga ga, da da, mama, wah wah. I want wah wah water. I want to talk about H2O, a complex molecule created by the union of two hydrogen atoms and oxygen. Well, that's how it works, right? But you start mimicry, and that's the way jazz music has been passed down. first you have to be able to learn the rules before you break the rules. I don't know if young cats appreciate that. And not appreciating that is go cause you to have to recreate the whole wheel, a wheel that was created over thousands and thousands of years of human ingenuity. Hard to create that. Maybe we can be delusional and think we can recreate it because it's something that looks easy. Things that look easy often compose of complex components that aren't appreciated until somebody figures out they can't do it, which means they didn't fully appreciate the thing. Parts of the brain have to be trained to hear. It took me as a clinician probably 20 years to get to the point where I could walk into a room, have a person just talk, not be. And I talked to a student about this the other day. Not be writing things down while the person is talking, not be typing on a computer while the patient is talking to you, but just fully engaged 100%. And the amazing thing I learned was when I walked away from that room, I had a three-dimensional holographic audiographic recording in my brain of the interaction that me and that person had just had. It didn't require me to go back and read all my notes and look at all the things that I typed. It was right here. It was right here because it was always right there too. You see? And I learned that when I fully engage this and I fully engage this, it might be hard. It may take me 20 years, 30 years, 40 years to be able to listen to a 5 minute conversation and actually remember what was said to a high level. Okay? But you know what? Jazz music taught me that you think you hear what's being said, you don't really hear it. And so the first thing you have to realize is that I can't do that right now. Maybe there's some part of my brain is processing it. Maybe some part of my but you got to access that part of your brain some way through your own efforts, your own grinding, shedding, asking, pleading, crying, giving up, saying the hell with it, coming back to it, saying I'll try one more time, and something amazing happens through that struggle. One day, holy smokes, I can hear a S3, S4 heart murmur. I can hear a tricuspid valve insufficiency murmur. This tiniest bit of blood leaking through a tricuspid valve, through diastole. All these things I can hear inside the human body, like an orchestra, okay, that I can hear. And it's a story that I can put together, you see. But by learning that in another art form that I'm not skilled in, you know, I know my skill level in jazz. I've studied it. I feel like I'm an ambassador of the music because I struggled so hard to learn the technical aspects of it. And I always loved listening to it. And then the one day I learned to join those two things together, understanding that learning to listen to it, it probably is the highest level that I could ever express as far as my love for it. Just sitting in a room, putting on Mary Lou Williams, listening, Cecil Taylor, you know, Paul Bley, just listening to that, and not adding to it, not taking from it, just the experience. And then, if I choose to, if I'm a part of that tradition, what did I really hear? What was really being said? What was really being played? That process, you definitely can be thought of as a refinement of the human um, skill art of listening. But in Coltrane's case, I'm a spiritual quest to get to, because I'm telling you, from my experience, nothing less than that will make you or create what we call masters. Any less. As people can appreciate mastery in certain fields, it looks like better because they're higher paid. because doctors drive these expensive cars around and wear stethoscopes around their neck. People say, "Oh, that's a master in a certain field," and da da da. But I'm telling you, like Miyamoto Musashi said, I remember being, I remember talking to Jason Moran about this one time. But we talked about Miyamoto Musashi. It was. I met a lot of people when I was younger at Stanford at the jazz festivals. But Musashi said, like, put the sword down and try calligraphy, see what happens. Right? Why did he say that? Because by trying to understand and master another an art form, you appreciate the primary one that you're involved in a different way. And by understanding that, there was a part of my brain that would take me decades in my life, if I chose to develop the ability to hear a jazz record, transcribe what I hear, and then play it back, would take an equal amount, if not more, time and effort, at least equal skill, than it took to become a physician. And then, even after 8 years, I was just be a baby in jazz music, learning that vocabulary. That's what people don't appreciate. And the aficionados of jazz and the ambassadors of jazz like me, you know, this is an art form that came from my I'm from Louisiana, man. You know, this came from my family. This came from my people. This is America's you know, great art form. And nobody appreciates fully what it really takes to learn it, what it really takes to create with that type of a paintbrush, and what will happen to you if you dedicated yourself to an art form like that. Parts of your being, definitely your ability to listen, will be deepened and enriched to a degree that you don't even realize. You know, and the crazy thing is, like, you could really be not that great. You could be an okay musician. I'm an okay musician. I've gotten I've gotten to sit down and play with people that are 1,000 times better than me, and I've even played on Bourbon Street. You know, sat in things like that, and even to do that took me years and years and years of preparation for a few moments of my life of appreciation of what that would enable me to do. Sit down and have a conversation with a group of musicians, because that's what's happening on the stage. We're having a conversation. Maybe I'm saying goo goo gaga, daddy, mama, baba, but daddies love their kids. You know, so if you're just saying dad, dad, mama, wah wah, they still gonna love you. But they might be saying, I thought we could maybe can we have a more complex conversation at a later date? Sure, but it's gonna require me to continue to learn and continue to listen. And it's not something that you got to put an expiration date on, man. To live in that sort of to live the music, to live the art, to live the science, it's something that is just going to refine you for the rest of your life. It's not about, oh, this is an old man music. I don't want to listen to no Thelonious Monk. What they got to do with my skinny jeans and my trap music or whatever. I mean, they it ain't about that, man. And I can say that because I've lived in so many different worlds. I produce hip hop music. I tried to learn the technical aspects of the jazz piano, so I can speak on both. That's why I joke with people. I'm like, look, man, I'm part European, part African. I could talk shit about white folks and black folks. That's in my blood. That's the same way I feel about jazz music and hip hop music. Robert Glasper is actually a person who's got his foot in both worlds as a professional. For me, it's something I'm passionate about, but I don't make a living at it. I haven't put the amount of sweat, blood, and tears that he's put into it. The same way he hasn't done that in the art of medicine. But the appreciation for both comes from reaching a high level of skill in an art form that requires you to listen and refine that skill. The thing is this: if you don't refine the art of listening, in medicine, there may appear to be shortcuts. You know, you can just the shortcuts are technology. Okay, technology allowing you to record a conversation, listen to it later, or transcribe it later. You know, because we transcribe too. You know, talking to a tape recorder, and then later on you have to type the notes, the medical notes. That's transcription, right? You listen to something, and later on you type it. Well, you transcribe the same in jazz. You do the same thing, but it's just you got to know what you're listening to. You got to know, you know. But the thing is that if you use technology, you know, the human element isn't there as much, et cetera, et cetera. You know, you continually get the right diagnosis, and you feel like, and you feel like, oh, no big deal. You know, these, you know, I get the right diagnosis. I ain't got to sit there and listen to that old lady for 30 minutes rambling. I know what's wrong with her. You on to the next thing. And the same thing happens with the music. You know, I ain't gonna listen to that. You know, I'm gonna play real fast, play real technical stuff, complex harmony, like Jason was talking about. You know, sound real sophisticated. You know, what you basically are doing is, you know, it's mimicry. It's mimicry. Okay, there's a degree of heart in it, but not as much as you may think. And there's ways that that will be revealed. Okay, obviously on the bandstand, jazz musicians can tell where you're at. You know, if you play with them, especially people that do it for a living, and the masters can tell real quick. You know, that's what mentorship is about: being with someone, telling them what you think you hear, or playing it. Peace, peace. What's up, Dion? Don't stay. And then they say, look, this ain't quite the way. You're not really hearing stuff. There's a story about Thelonious Monk. You know, somebody couldn't hear the changes he was playing in a song, and oh no, they couldn't hear a certain section that was hard. And the story about Thelonious Monk I heard was that he started dancing that part of the music, those measures of music, the rhythms most likely, time, the rhythm, the melody maybe. Obviously, it'd be hard to dance in harmony, but I don't know. Maybe you can. If you can, drummers do it. But at any rate, that shows you like the genius, the connectivity to so many different things. You know, rhythm, harmony, et cetera, and the ability to communicate that in a way because that person couldn't fully get it. You know, these are professional musicians. You know, he was working with trying to learn his music before they got on the bandstand. So that really impressed me that he could do that. Just get up and start dancing. You know, that means he's always, to me, that means he was always talking from his soul. He had the technical skill. He knew how to listen. He spent the time. He mastered it. And then after that, you reach a level of mastery where you can talk with your soul. Obviously, we want to do that in various art forms. Believe me, art medicine is an art form. You want to talk with your soul. That's when people benefit. Okay, that I know for a fact. But it's not the only art form that is required in. It's required in every art form if you really want to push them to their limits, to the ultimate fruition of really what they were designed for, unforeseen, unimagined, heart, love, empathy, compassion, being the very expression of every single thing we do. Well, how do you get there? Well, we've been given gifts on the planet, in our country, in our culture, that we don't fully appreciate, and we don't fully appreciate the what it takes. You know, like Dick Feynman said, told his sister, you don't understand that book, the point that you don't understand, you go back to the beginning, you start reading again at page one, and you read the whole thing again, and it'll make a little more sense the 50th time you read it. than it did the first time. The first time I really wanted to start learning what particle physics was, it seemed like almost an impossible task with my background being in just basic chemistry, basic calculus, basic math. But something amazing happened over 10 years of reading books on particle physics over and over and over again. I'm like, holy shit, I actually understand. I actually understand what I'm reading now. I actually understand what they're doing at CERN and when they're colliding and smashing atoms together. Wow. So this is what repetition does, huh? Something that you thought you couldn't master, you could never understand. A sheet of music in jazz that you can't hear the changes on, just can't hear them, right? Some complex mathematical equations talking about resonance and T and S channel scattering and et cetera, et cetera. And you go into the physics stacks and these guys are talking to each other in a language you don't understand, right? But you know what? Keep coming back. Keep coming back. Go back to the point where you didn't understand it, reread it. Maybe you got to refine something. Maybe you got to go back to a simpler theme because he talked about that. People not wanting to play swing music, simple swing music. They want to play this complex stuff. Look, I did the same thing. I did the same thing when I first started hearing Bill Evans. I would try to play lines like Bill Evans, it's gibberish, man. I was just saying gibberish, just like what your kids do. When your kids want to mimic you, they'll say something and it's just gibberish. They don't know it's gibberish. I'm not saying gibberish is bad. It's something that is necessary to learn. So how could it be bad? If you get stuck on gibberish, and people think that this high-minded, highbrow, fast music, real fast, are you saying it with a lot of emotion? Because a lot of that stuff that people say is so great, just because you put a lot of raw emotion in it doesn't always translate into it being, technically precise, right? It doesn't translate into people learning to open up their ears in their mind and hear, you know, what if you could hear what birds were actually saying to each other? What if you could hear the language of your own body? It's called yoga, right? What if you could really hear it, right? None of us here at the level we need to. Certain art forms, medicine, jazz music, when you embrace them, when you get off your fucking high horse, stop arguing with your teachers, because these students out here want to tell me what they know, and then I got to break them down. I got to break them down and say, you know what? There's so much shit about this you don't know. I done forgot more shit about this than you probably may ever learn. You need to be humble, man. You need to be humble if you're a musician in medicine, science, whatever, because what's been done before us and the methods that were used to get there, and we get excited. I understand. I'm the same way. We get excited when we learn something new. We get some new spiritual knowledge, or you learn how to play something on an instrument a little bit better, or you learn how to go into a patient's room and listen to them make a diagnosis, and then everybody's like, "Wow, you're great," But you got to be real careful. That's a slippery, slippery slope. Okay, because there is a way to refine those skills. It will require someone that's done it better than you, longer than you, with more empathy and selflessness than you, to show you by example that it can be done. And you will have to participate by immersing yourself into that, listening with every ounce of your being. It may come a time when you play something on an instrument and you have nothing else to do. You have nowhere else to go. You have nowhere else to go except, I guess I got to put 100% because I can't do the damn thing. I have nothing else left but to put everything, throw the kitchen sink in, everything. And oftentimes, that's when the breakthrough happens. When you just quit holding on let go. Just do the damn thing, as they say, at the highest level that you can, over and over and over again. Blood, sweat, tears, bloody knuckles, whatever. Because once you reach that level of skill, you'll be like, that's what that was all about. That's what that feels like. That's what being at that level is like, you know, where I don't, when I can participate, I can really participate at a level that, maybe no one appreciates it. Sometimes that's the way it is. Sometimes there ain't no lollipops and participation ribbons for this shit. It's just like you know. In the case of art forms, people are listening. Yeah, you get some feedback. That's what it's about. But let's be honest. The real communication that we really all need to learn is with ourselves at the highest level, and then everything else falls in the line. You know, my, my ability to talk to you, receive what's being given, hear what's being given, and then participate in the conversation. The conversation I'm participating in right now is based on what? Medicine, philosophy, discussing a art form that's hundreds and hundreds of years old, passed down by my ancestors, turned into modern music. You know, to have this conversation intelligently, I've had to listen for decades of my life to multiple streams come from different art forms, and then pay attention and process and go, oh, okay, that's why some people can function at this certain level, and it seems like it's just purely intuitive, but it's not. It's based on you know many, 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 many hours and years of questioning themselves, going back to the drawing board, re-refining, questioning themselves, reaching a higher level. That's not quite right. What is it? Is that the truth? Go back, refine it, polish it, get to the next level, a little bit higher. Use it, help somebody. It ain't quite right. I want it to be right. What I got to do? Go back to the drawing board. That's the process. Whether it's medicine, whether it's music, whether, you know, if you guys want hip hop music to reach the next level, people doing that, that's what it's going to take. And, sometimes it's going to sound like, well, why are they going back and doing that? That's already been done. Well, maybe it has been done, but maybe it wasn't refined. Maybe it wasn't polished in individuals' cases, maybe groups' cases. And so for you to bring the thing up to the level that, well, let's just say it like this: the old thing can be polished, refined, mastered, and then that becomes a new thing. It's just this illusion that the new thing is just a new thing. No, new thing is always based on the old thing, man. You can't change that, man. You can't change that. Okay? And so, we all evolved in the old thing. I mean, don't we all love our parents for the most part? Don't we all respect our elders for the most part? I mean, there's old traditions. Where do you think they come from? Why you think we do them? We ain't out here living off of anarchy. We out here living off of skill. This iPhone took skill. Somebody mastered mathematics, right? This language I'm speaking took skill. This is thousands of years of what is this? Germanic languages, Viking languages, Celtic languages, Latin, right? That's what English is. Man, that took a whole lot of freaking refinement for me to be able to express these abstract ideas and concepts to you in a way that I'm creating a living movie in your head as I speak right now. But it's taken for granted. We don't understand the skill that it took. We should. We need to. We need to remind each other. That's also part of what the music is, the art forms are, to remind us how we got here, right? Anyway, um, anyway, I said enough about it. I just was inspired when Mr. Marcellus talked about what he had heard from the other artists that he was, elaborating on why do we need to listen? Why do we need to, you know, learn to repeat uh, the vocabulary, the things that were given to us, said in music, that vocabulary, in medicine, the same thing. Trust me, it's no different. Every art form has its vocabulary. It has its toolkits, you know, things that we need and we have to use to communicate with each other. But it requires us. And the biggest thing though is, you know, you got to get outside of yourself, man. That's not said enough. And sometimes in certain areas, that's it's understood by people because they do it. But the advantage, the beauty of having being a master, a jack of all like me and a master of none, is I've gotten to take looks at the landscape from different perspectives. I've gotten to look at the landscape from the perspective of science, look at it from the perspective of an art form like music, look at it from the perspective of an art form that's applied like medicine, you know, uh, and then you can come back and say something about the thing that's like, oh wow, you found a common thread. You found something that's shared between these things. Look at it from the standpoint of uh, Eastern mysticism or some other what's considered esoteric, belief systems. But really, it's all connected, man. People all looking for this unique way to them and their people, their clan, their whatever, to polish the stone, reach this level of perfection, you know, reach the stars, make it to heaven, whatever. You know, it's very, 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 very naive to think that all these other traditions, cultures, art forms have nothing to offer you, no insight as far as how does the thing that you are involved in relate to the thing that he's or she's involved in, as far as how do you perfect it? How do you really reach the highest level of skill in that thing? There's most likely a commonality there, a common thread, a way that you can learn from this and from that. And both things inform each other. And then when you come back, you say, wow, I have the ability to at least see. Like, trust me, I know how to reach the next level of skill in jazz music if I choose to. If I choose to do it, I know how to do it. It ain't easy. It ain't nothing that's always enjoyable. But to even understand that process, you know, um, to not appreciate that you have to listen at a level that one you may not be able to at this point. You don't know how to do it, but to have faith that you can. Maybe you got to play that solo 1,000 times before you can sit down and actually sing it, hum it, and then play it on your instrument, and then bring it into a conversation. In a way that's, I'm not going to sit here and just say, food for cocoa, food for cocoa. What the hell am I talking about, right? Well, I don't need food for cocoa puffs right now. So why am I going to be saying it in music or in any conversation you see? So I mean, there's an appropriateness there. There's a way we participate in a conversation that is skillful. It's beneficial for everyone. It elevates everything. I don't care if the conversation is you and your friends on the corner, on the bandstand playing jazz music, in the patient's room trying to figure out what they're really trying to tell me, why they feel bad. You know, it does require you to get yourself out of the way. You need to get you out of the way. Let Mother Nature's miracle, the ears, the brain, the eyes, let it do its thing. Because if you let it do its thing enough and you quit interfering with it all the time with your expectations and your wants and your desires and all of this, and I need it to sound like this. I need the piano to sound like this. That's what I need. Just get out of the way, man. It's a similar process in every art form, and then you have to just have faith, and you have to believe. You have to, you know, to love what you're doing. Otherwise, when you know when your knuckles are bloody and you're crying and it's not what you want, you're not gonna come back to it if you don't love it, right? For the thousand millionth time, but you're gonna have to, because you're not gonna master particle physics, jazz music, medicine, you know, uh, yoga, whatever it is, in 10 easy lessons. It's just not gonna happen. And if you want to continuously settle for um, parroting, everybody sounding the same, always saying the same thing, everybody agreeing that it's cool, but you know, we've been eating macaroni for like 2 years. I'm kind of tired of it. Can we put a little bit of meat on the plate? I'm telling you how to put meat on the plate. That's all. That's all I got, man. Namaste. Peace out.